It's episode 471 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. Today I'm talking about the minor leaguers finally getting some housing, a little bit of ALCS and NLCS drama, a little bit about Ron Washington, and all that and so much more coming up on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the Texas Rangers. I'm your host, Brice Paterik, here today with episode 471 of the Locked On Texas Rangers podcast. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Rangers your first listen of the day. Now, the big news in today, well, I guess technically yesterday, because this is Monday, as you're listening to this, or maybe it's Tuesday. I don't know. But the big news out of Sunday, all the sports news, the WNBA championship was awarded to, Chicago. There was NFL. Cowboys had a crazy game. There was Major League Baseball was happening. But, the biggest news of the day for my money was Jeff Passan breaking news. Major League Baseball teams will provide housing for minor league players starting in 2022, sources tells ESPN. Now, he went on to say that exactly what teams will be required to do remains unclear. Players are hopeful. Teams are mandated to follow the lead of the Houston Astros, which first time that's ever been said. People are hopeful that teams are going to follow the lead of the Houston Astros, who this year provided lodging rather than a stipend. Finding a place to live, players say, is a problem on top of the financial burdens. Now, in case you're new to the show, you're new to baseball, you're new to minor league baseball, or caring about that, you may think, okay, why do they need to be provided housing? Don't they make plenty of money? Isn't it totally fine? Aren't they millionaires? No. Some of them are, sure. They're the bonus babies. I mean, Jack Leiter got nearly $8 million this year to be the second overall pick, but that's the second overall pick. There's only one guy who got, well, actually, he didn't even get more than him. The top pick this year didn't get more than Jack Leiter. And there used to be a lot more, bonus babies, as they called them, out of Latin America and international free agents that got these huge, ginormous bonuses, $5-6 million. But now, because teams were, taking advantage of that and actually paying minor league players a whole lot of money out of those South American and, Caribbean nations, Major League Baseball tamped down on that and gave an absolute limit of the bonus pools that teams could have. So not as many young players were getting paid, and even the ones that weren't getting paid the same big sums that some of these previous minor leaguers did, like Ronald Guzman and Nomar Mazara, who I believe were the two highest signings, the most money that the Rangers paid to any Dominican or I guess Latin American player. I believe they're both Dominican. No, Ronald Guzman I believe is out of Venezuela, but Nomar is Dominican. Anyway, that's beside the point. But anyway, these minor leaguers are not making a lot of money, and so a lot of them are having to live in these one-bedroom apartments, 4 people to an apartment, some just insane living situations. They're making terrible money. In 2022 or 2021, they increased minor league player salaries 38 to 72%, which I'm going to need a lot more specifics on that, depending on the level, and significantly reduced travel requirements during the season. This is a statement by Major League Baseball, by the way. In addition, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of improvements to our minor league ballparks around the country are already underway, including substantial renovations to player-facing facilities like locker rooms and training rooms, which good, that was absolutely needed. But really just paying the players an actual, living wage would be nice. Salary increases this year. This is from Jeff Passan's story. Salary increases for minor league players this season bumped their minimum pay from $290 to $500 a week in Class A, so single A, from $350 to $600 a week in Double A, from $502 a week to $700 a week for Triple A. For full season Class A players, receive at least $12,000. Double A players receive at least $14,400, and AAA players receive $16,800. Some veterans, especially those with major league service time, receive higher salaries. So, most of these guys make that under $15,000 a year, and then they only get paid for 6 months out of the year, which you think, oh, that's $30,000. That's still not really living wage in a lot of places. There's not a whole lot of places that you can, live, pay rent, pay bills, take care of yourself, and also have time to, spend the next 6 months training, 2 hours a day or however many hours a day, which is part of their contract, is they have to stay in shape during the off season while also, making enough money to make a living during the off season and, during the regular season, because they're not getting paid all that much money. They're having to go find places to live. And if they're getting promoted mid-season, I mean, makes sense of that. If they're a guy who's in high A and then he has to go all the way across the country and, he pays for 2 months, he signs a 6-month lease and he's still got to pay the other 3 months of it, then go find a lease in Frisco when he gets promoted. Like, that's a very, very difficult situation. And it's made life really, really tough on minor leaguers. So this is a big improvement, but it still should have been done a long time ago. I want to take a quick break, come back and talk a little bit more about this, then look into what's happened in the ALCS and the NLCS. And, it's a nice moment from our old friend, Ron Washington, coming up right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there is no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you should pay minor leaguers a living wage. First off, they're your employees. It's the right thing to do. It's just a standard of a human being as an employer to just pay them a living wage. That goes for every job, but especially these big jobs where the people who are in charge are these super duper billionaires that have a lot of money to spend and can foot the bill and are making a lot of money on this product, both minor league players and major league players. Every single major league player was a minor league player at some point, and a lot of them had to go through this. All of them had to go through this. A lot of them had to go through living basically in poverty for 3, 4, 5 years, however long it takes for them to get up to the major leagues. And the physical toll is immense. These guys are, dining at Taco Bell and Chipotle and whatever, because that's all they can get their hands on. That's all they can afford. And obviously, when you want to be an elite athlete, eating Taco Bell 5 times a week, as much as I love Taco Bell, and I'm clearly not an elite athlete, so it doesn't really, affect how I make a living. But if you're a guy who makes a living off your body, you got to treat your body well, and eating healthy is expensive. And especially when you're on the go or, working as often as these guys are, I'm surprised they don't have just a standard like minor league buffet dinner for the teams like major leaguers do to, get some nutrition in there, take some control of what these players are eating, make sure that they're treating their bodies well, and can do that. It's not really to shame these guys, but when you're really poor, you eat $1 taco. That sounds great. That sounds like a great deal. Feeding yourself for that cheap and that quickly makes life a lot easier. So when you're making $14,000 a year, you pinch pennies every single place that you can. And a lot of times that comes on food, that comes on rent, that comes on all kinds of other things that these guys should just be making an honest living. Like it's not that difficult. But the housing is the biggest issue. So this is a huge, huge increase for them. And, very, very necessary. And, this is a nice step in the right direction. And while it should have happened a long time ago, it's still a step and it's still nice. I'm not going to give huge props to the owners because, in order to pay for all this, pay for the housing of all these minor leaguers, it costs around less than $1 million per organization. That's one extremely mediocre end of the bench player. One extremely mediocre end of the bench player, or $1 million off of your huge whatever $200 million contract you're offering some free agent in the offseason. Just like 1 million, 199 million as opposed to 200 million. Like, it's not that much money. And you're going to see a bigger return on your investment, along with it's just what you should do as a decent human being. Like, you should treat these people like human beings. Don't make them live in poverty. Don't make them live in these horrible conditions. Just let them live like human people. And I hope that they're continuing on this and making sure that they're actually providing good housing, not just like, all right, here's a barn you can sleep in. Here's a cot. Hope your back doesn't get screwed up. Hope you are fine with that. Hope it's okay to your liking and whatever. Like, I hope that they're actually providing them good, decent housing, and not having to shove them in, like a barracks situation or, like a billion people in one room. Like, they can actually have, a decent living, because these owners can afford it and they should afford it. And not only is it going to make you you're being a better person by doing this, like it's going to improve your product. If you don't care about being a good person, if you don't care about doing the right thing by your players, if you don't care about, general humanitarian concerns, which if you're a billionaire is entirely possible, but it's also going to make you more money. How many prospects have flamed out or had to, quit baseball or haven't lived up to their potential because they weren't able to take care of their bodies and they had, injuries, or their careers cut short, or just the physical and mental strain that it takes to deal with these awful and unnecessary conditions got to them, and they had to quit the sport of baseball. How many stars did we lose out on? How many even just, regular, decent major league players did we miss out on because they couldn't handle these unreasonable and unnecessary conditions? Probably more than a few, probably quite a lot. And if you provide them with these things, if you make their lives better during these minor league years, they'll have a better chance of becoming, the talent that you thought they were when you either drafted them or signed them internationally or traded for them or whatever. These prospects, they're people, and they deserve to be treated like people. And this is a long overdue step in that process. But I want to shout out people like Emily Kaplan, people who are, providing and telling these stories of minor leaguers, helping get these things done, helping make people aware that, Major League Baseball has an exemption through Congress to be able to pay these players so little money, an exemption because, they're artists or whatever. And so, they're chasing a dream. Like, just because you're chasing a dream doesn't mean that you should suffer. A lot of times it means you do. Like, I mean, if you're chasing like a dream of, I don't know, being a sports writer, you might have to live with your parents for a long, long time. And, there was no billionaire that I worked for that could have stepped up and fixed that. With these minor leaguers who are a lot more talented in their field than I am, and who are in a, bigger field, their bosses are much richer than any of my bosses ever have been. Except for that, brief moment when I worked for Disney. That's neither here nor there. But they have the money to do this. They have shown great aptitude in the field that they're in. They are talented players who have a lot of potential. And if they aren't, then they shouldn't be in your minor league system. And I hate that they had to cut so many minor league teams just last year. It hurts my heart. A lot of teams, a lot of cities aren't getting minor league baseball, which is a glorious, wonderful sport. Hey, one of the best parts of baseball in this country is minor league baseball. It's silly, it's fun, it's cheap. You can actually go to it. It's enjoyable, it's intimate. Like, it's one of the best venues for baseball is these minor league parks. And a lot of cities lost that, or they're only getting independent league baseball. Not to trash on independent league baseball, but you're not getting these as many big future stars coming through there as you are with a certified minor league team. But one of the benefits of that is that it makes it easier and, puts a lot more pressure, or I guess put a lot more pressure on these billionaire owners to step up, put up your checkbook, and sign these players, pay for their expenses, pay them like a normal human person. There are fewer excuses. There are fewer players. So it's less costly. Not that they couldn't have foot the bill when they had more minor league teams. They absolutely could have and should have. a long time ago before it got to this point. But here we are. And a small credit to owners across the league of stepping up. A slightly larger credit to the Astros for stepping up and doing this last year and, making the rest of the league look bad by not doing it. And now the league is like, okay, well, I guess we're going to do this. We don't want to make the Astros make us look bad, which they already did. And the Astros have made Major League Baseball look bad for plenty of bad reasons, but this is for a good reason. So shouts to you, I guess, Jim Crane, Astros ownership. But I'm going to take a quick break. I just felt dirty saying that. So we take a quick break, just go shower myself off of saying those words, and then take a quick look at a wild weekend of ALCS and NLCS action and why I absolutely love Ron Washington. Coming up right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Do you know that Built Bar has a bazillion delicious flavors? I mean, there's not a bazillion. There is a real rational number, and it is 9 different flavors, plus all kinds of good limited time action. If you don't know about the flavors, you can talk to a Built Bar fan. If you haven't heard this podcast before, then hi, this is a Built Bar show that occasionally talks about baseball and the Texas Rangers. But there are all kinds of different flavors, from raspberry mint chocolate, orange cookies and cream, German chocolate, salted caramel, double chocolate, mint brownie, coconut, if that's your kind of thing. Like, there's all kinds of great stuff. And the Built Bar flavors, they're all tasty, and they're all healthy as well. They've got 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180 per bar, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty, all healthy. So get in on this Built Bar goodness. Go to built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Now let's look at a wild weekend of ALCS and NLCS action. Last year's NLCS was absolutely popping. It was great. It was at Globe Life Field. And I don't know why, but like part of me kind of like felt a little weird of like not seeing, postseason baseball on a neutral site. Like we weren't seeing, I don't know, this ALCS in San Diego like we did last year, or random, was it Yankees and Rays that played in LA? I don't remember. It was just all kinds of weird action. And I was getting deja vu with LA and Atlanta playing against each other, but not playing in Arlington, which, there's not going to be playoff baseball again in Arlington for a hot minute. There might be some playoff football, but that's across the street. And this ain't a Cowboys podcast. This is a baseball podcast. But there's also a Ron Washington Appreciator podcast. The guy has absolutely no fear. He is the third base coach of the Atlanta Braves, in case you don't remember. In case you don't know who the heck I'm talking about, first off, welcome to being new to being a Rangers fan. You got in a little late. You missed a lot of the actual fun, but we're still glad you're here. Ron Washington is the winningest manager in Texas Rangers history, and had a very unceremonious exit. A lot of problems going on with him at the time of his departure in 2014. And of course, that was the Rangers' lost season. And we don't need to go into what happened in the final month of that season and the draft pick that the Rangers lost. It's fine. It's fine. I'm still over it. It's fine. Alex Bregman is kind of a tool. So maybe bullet dodge there, even though he's a really good baseball player. And I wouldn't say he's a tool if he was on the Rangers, but that's where we are. So we're just going to lean into it. But anyway, Ron Washington is a fearless third base coach, and had some absolutely fearless sends in the final innings, I guess, of this Dodgers Braves game that happened on Sunday. And I'm trying to figure out which of these 17 different box scores that I clicked on it was actually happening in. Yes, there we go. Finally, we're on the right box score. Just a wild and fun game. We had a Will Smith versus Will Smith matchup, which we were all looking forward to, the fresh prince of at-bats, if you will. We had Corey Seager, massive home run, a Jock Peterson, Jocktober jam, lots of fun, and just some great heady base running and some fearless sends by Ron Washington. So this was a back and forth game, had a 2-run shot by Corey Seager in the first inning for the Dodgers. Atlanta came back with a 2-run shot of their own in the fourth inning. Then in comes the Dodgers, and they score a couple of runs on a kind of misplay defensively by Atlanta, and they take a 4-2 lead in the top of the seventh inning, and it's like, okay, oh no, oh Dodgers, oh Braves, you could have won this. You could have taken a 2-0 series lead and go into Atlanta, which, by the way, it's still stupid with divisions that a team that won 106 games. I know most people don't like them. I don't really have strong feelings about the Dodgers, but a team that won 106 games, having to be the away team, having, no home field advantage in the NLCS is still wild to me. The only home field advantage they had was in the play-in, or against the wild card game. It's not the play-in game, but it's the wild card game, and that's just absolutely bonkers to me. Anyway, some heady base running in the final couple innings. A very aggressive Sin. Ozzie Albies singled and to right fielder Steven Souza, who has a cannon of an arm, and Eddie Rosario, who had a 4-hit game, really nice game for him, was able to score, I believe, from second base. Austin Riley had a big double to center fielder Mookie Betts. Ozzie Albies was not going to be gunned down at all. By the way, Steven Souza had a really close throw that nearly got Eddie Rosario, but it didn't, and that run scored, making it a 4-3 Dodgers lead. Then Austin Riley's double to left fielder in the left field gap. Mookie Betts made a great play on it, great throw, just perfectly placed. There was no route that he could have taken that would have got him there, and a good relay throw, I believe, by Gavin Lux. I think it was Trey Turner that made that relay throw that Ozzie Albies just scooted in ahead of. Then Eddie Rosario comes in, and in the bottom of the ninth inning, both of these were fearless sends by Ron Washington. He's like, I don't care. I don't care if it's a slow dribbler to right fielder Steven Souza who's got a cannon for an arm. I don't care. Doesn't matter. I'm sending you. You're fast, and you can get it done. Then Eddie Rosario comes in the ninth inning, singled sharply up the middle. Corey Seager tried his best to get it, jumped up, and it knocked off his glove, and it scored Dansby Swanson from second base, and Atlanta took a 2-0 lead. This is not something that I saw coming, but Atlanta's a good team. They're really a good team. They're missing a few of their bats, obviously, from COVID and from season-ending injuries, and this is a team that went all in on it, and I have been and will continue to be a staunch defender of teams that unabashedly go for it. Even times when it doesn't quite make sense, just straight up going for it. Because, there's a lot of teams that just don't go for it at all. They just don't put forth enough effort. They don't, put their resources behind a team. They let players walk. They continue to cry poor. Even rich teams that do that, it drives me absolutely insane. In a league with no salary cap, how few teams actually go and spend money. That's why the Rays drive me insane. That's why the A's drive me insane. They're still good even with all that nonsense. But the Dodgers go for it too. But the Braves lost all these players and they still went for it. And I also respect the heck out of any team betting hugely on the Mets being a trash fire. That's just tip of your cap to you, because it's a sign to them that you think, all right, this is a double middle finger, that they also not only caught them and passed them with all these star players out for the year. They're like, yeah, we don't trust you to not screw this up. And I think it put a lot more pressure on the teams that were ahead of them. Like, are you kidding me? They lost all these guys. They lost one of the best players in baseball, and Ronald Acuna Jr. for the season after, I believe, 50 or 60 games. And they're still going for it? Are you kidding me? And they did, and they won the division, and it got them home field advantage, and they did their best and won 2 games. Now they go into LA. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is a good series. 2 really good teams. The Braves are a really good team. This would be a lot better, I think, of a series if they had, obviously, all of their star players playing and healthy. Just a Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back would be just absolutely massive and a lot of fun. But this is a really good series, and so is the other series. I want to talk really quickly on that. Mainly just talk about how in 2 consecutive innings, the Boston Red Sox hit grand slams. That's just hilarious. And I love that it happened against the Astros. Just Rafael Devers hitting an absolute scorcher of a grand slam. And JD Martinez, who, in case you don't remember, was released by the Astros in just before the 2014 season. And they talked about how, oh my gosh, this guy is so good. Oh man, he's going to be, a star, and he's got star potential. But, we just don't have room for him on our roster for him to, blossom and grow or whatever the way that we want him to. And this is a 2014 Astros. This was not the quite there Astros. This was an Astros team that was still had its young core, was still just coming out of all the losing and all that stuff. In 2014, JD Martinez had a pretty solid season, but not quite great. In 2013, he didn't have a good season. But in 2015, that's when he really hit his stride, hit, I believe, 36 home runs with the Detroit Tigers, and blossomed into his first All-Star season. It was 2014 when he first played for the Tigers, had a decent year there, a 912 OPS. Where would he go? 23 home runs in 123 games. The year before in Houston, 2013, he played in 86 games, had a 650 OPS, just never had a season that he did super well in with them. And I love that he just figured it out right when he left the Astros. Like, that's just, it's just perfect for me. Had several great seasons in Detroit, a half a season where he did very well in Arizona, then has been in Boston since 2018 and has absolutely done work every season except for 2020, which is a weird season, a bad season for everybody, but still absolutely did work this year. Made the Astros look like fools, almost came back and got a win in game 1 of this series. The Red Sox did. Chris Sale looked real rough. I can't say I ever envisioned a world where he was their worst starting pitcher. And that was the reason they didn't trust him, is because they only had Chris Sale, but Chris Sale has been not good. Eovaldi did fairly well, especially under the circumstances. People were talking about maybe taking him out after such a long break, and maybe that's why he didn't do as well. But still went 5 1/3 innings, only allowed 3 runs. And you've got to have somebody go a whole bunch of innings. He is their workhorse. He only threw 81 pitches, so maybe he can go a little bit deeper in the next game for them. But taking one of the 2 games on the road to start this ALCS is huge. I believe game 3 is tonight in Boston. They are returning to Boston. Going to be a lot of fun to watch that game. Lots of good stuff going on there, and good news about minor league baseball players. But that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. I want to thank you all again for making Locked On Rangers your first listen of the day. I'll be back later this week, hopefully with Grant, maybe with some other guests. And I'm going to talk about something that I'm very much looking forward to, a New York Post article talking about MLB launching a nationwide streaming service for games in your market, not being blacked out for all of MLB TV games. That would be a huge game changer, and I'm going to look more into that and talk more about that later on this week. But I'm going to enjoy watching some playoff baseball, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy watching, hopefully, the Astros lose baseball games.